everyone, welcome back to Flawless Exotic Creations. If you're new here, I'm Audra, and along with my husband Will, we share our life and our ball pythons and everything that goes into breeding ball pythons, whether you're new at this, it's your very first year, or whether you're a veteran, or maybe you're somewhere in the middle like us. We're on our third season now, and just super excited about all of our clutches. And if you haven't checked out our What's in the Box series, you might want to go do that. I'm not sure what clutch we're up to yet, but it looks like we're going to end up with 48 clutches this season, so that is really awesome. And that's what we do here. We share about all of our trials, our tribulation, our troubleshooting, like the three T's, trials, tribulations, and troubleshooting. But we also talk our successes and our wins and what we've hit and what we're excited about in all those projects. But one thing that we haven't spoken about is, you guys know, if you've been here for quite some time, that I've had a really big fear of snakes in the past. So this video is going to be a little different, obviously, and I am going to talk about something that I had hoped would have never happened, but it did. Let's dive in. So what happened? Yep, you guessed it. I got tagged. I got bit for the very first time. Now, before you panic, because I've said it a million times that if I get bit, that's it. But I'm totally fine. No need to worry. I have all of my 10 digits on my 2 hands, and on my feet, I have 10 digits down there, which I don't know why my snake would have bitten my toes, but anyway, who knows, it could happen. But what's crazy is it actually changed really the way I see fear, and really snakes, and even myself. So today I want to share with you exactly what happened, and what it taught me, and why it might actually help you to know my story, especially if you're scared of getting bit, or maybe you're just starting out and are scared to handle these awesome creatures. Story time. So let's rewind just a bit. I've had a pretty big fear of snakes all of my life. So to kind of reiterate why I had that fear, when I was younger, my biological father, he decided that it would be funny to put a boa constrictor around my neck when I was, obviously I'm little. And I think he might have been inebriated at the time. I know he was inebriated at the time. And him and his friend thought it was funny. And of course, me being like 6, 7, 8, somewhere around in there, I freaked out. And I guess the snake obviously fed off of my vibes, and it freaked out a little bit. I'm shaking, and it's not liking that. And it instilled a fear in me that I couldn't really get over, and no one really helped me get over, because of course they just made fun of me and basically called me a crybaby and went on about their life. Now, I'm a little girl, okay, a tiny little baby girl, and that's the first experience I'd had with a snake outside of being told as a young child, watch where you step, because I'm from the country, so we would go out in the woods and hunt muscadines and honeysuckles, and I rode horses and all the things, and we were always taught, by my mom and my dad, you have to watch where you step, because you could end up in a copperhead, with a copper stepping on a copperhead, because those camouflage themselves so well here in the South with all the leaves in the forest and such. So that was my experience with snakes up to that point, and then when they did that to me, it was over. And then again, like I say, no one really took the time to try to get me over that fear. No one cared enough. So I've always thought there was an intrigue about snakes. I've always been interested in looking at them, even if it did give me the heebie-jeebies at times. I was probably what you would say an admirer from a distance kind of girl, even after my, you know, true fear had come out, you know, and I was just like don't touch me, don't let me see one. Like, it really gave me serious anxiety. And even after we started, you know, you guys know we started in crested geckos. So even after we started in crested geckos and going to the shows, like, at first I was very apprehensive. You know, it was always one of those things like, no, 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 no. They were there and I loved to look at them, but that was as far as I was going. And then finally, you know, we did end up getting a ball python, and I've learned through going to the shows and some really awesome vendors out there. I have to give a shout out to Aaron Mathis. He is with Black Diamond, and he had a huge Burmese python at one of his shows, or one of the shows. I think it was Grovetown, actually, Grovetown in Georgia. It was a Show Me Snake show, and we were there, and he got me to actually let the snake wrap around me. We actually have pictures of that. Maybe I'll pop those up here so you can see that moment. But that was the first time I had touched or held a snake since I was that 7-8-year-old little girl that was freaking out. So it was a huge moment for me. But going to the shows and putting myself in those scenarios, and of course having Will, my husband, just like trying to get me, you know, more comfortable, and being understanding in the fact that I was completely anti-snake for the longest time, and understanding that it wasn't going to be something that I could just jump into. He took it slow with me, and he taught me how to kind of face that fear and help me along through the fear. I always say it's always good to, like, you might not be able to understand what a person's going through. You may not be able to actually experience that with that person, but as long as you're at the bottom with them, holding their hand, like, a lot of times they can work through a lot of things. So he was with me at the bottom, right? So, you know, so that's really the story of how, you know, I started working through that fear. And then, you know, fast forward, we've got 100 snakes at this point. We've got them in the facility, and we're cleaning and all those things. And for the longest time, honestly, I will have to say, this was on Will's shoulders. This has been on his back. You know, in that first bit, it was just a fear. So it was hard for me to come outside that. He would take a snake out. I might help him clean it, or I'll give him new bins and put, at the time we were using cocoa, now we use cypress and whatnot. And we were just, our substrate, you know, putting in the substrate, making sure the water dishes were filled and all that kind of stuff. But as far as like handling them just very in a comfortable fashion, that definitely was not me in the first, probably the first season. So, you know, again, fast forward to now, I am like doing my own videos with them, unboxing videos. You know, that was in sort of like halfway through the first, into the second season, I started doing my own unboxing videos. And it just like, each week, it seemed like I was getting more and more comfortable with the snake in general, with any snake. You know, I was a little apprehensive about the big mamas when they sit on their eggs. Like, that one's a little a little tricky. I usually let him pull big mamas off, and then I'll help him, you know, get the eggs out and place the eggs and all that kind of thing. But I had just gotten so comfortable. So in the back of my head, I think I thought, okay, I'm okay with this. But, you know, there's always that like nagging little feeling, like, what if this is the day that one of them bites you? And, you know, I had been kind of like snapped at a couple of times by like the babies, but they don't really give me that they don't unlock that fear like our bigger snakes do. So I was cleaning one of our girls' enclosures, and she'd already kind of warned me that she was not in the mood to deal with my shenanigans. She had kind of seemed like she was a little territorial of her space. And, you know, I should have thought to myself, okay, we need to make her feel a little bit more comfortable and kind of put something in between her head and my hand. But of course I didn't. I just reached right down in there to get her poop that she had laid out so beautifully for me. And when I did, bam, she snapped my hand so quick. It happened like in an instant. And I almost didn't realize it happened when it was happening. It was like she popped me and released pretty much right then. It was pretty much like, hey, get out of my space. And, so again, it's one of those things where it's definitely, when you get hit by a snake, when you get tagged by a snake, it's definitely your fault. It's not the snake's fault. It's definitely your fault. So she had already warned me, and I didn't listen. I didn't, give her the space that she wanted at the time, and she let me know. But she let me know in definitely a fashion where she hit the top of my hand, and when she hit the top of my hand, immediately, like, I started bleeding there, and I was like, wow, like, I just got bit, and I'm bleeding, and like, it was just one of those moments. It was funny because I looked around, and when she did it, like, I kind of squealed a little bit and dropped the napkin and stuff that I was holding her lovely large poop in, and dropped it in the floor. And when I did, all the boys were in the facility at the time. We were all doing our little clean-ins, and I think one was sweeping, one was loading enclosures with new substrate. Will was dealing with other snakes at the time. And as soon as it happened, like, I squealed, and I looked over at him, and he's got his eyes are like, oh my God. He was legitimately, I think, more nervous at that point than I was. And he looked at me and he said, I'll take care of it. Just don't worry about it. Don't, just I'll deal with it. You don't need to do that, because I was helping clean out these bins and things. And I looked at him and I was like, no, I'm okay. Like, I'm never going to get past this if you don't step back and let me do it. The fact that he had that fear inside of him that I was going to be like, nope, I'm done. You can have it is funny to me, but like, he's put in the work to help me through these fears, and I have legitimately put in the work to help me through these fears, and it just worked out. So it's weird because it didn't really affect me in the way that I thought it would. Does it make me a little bit jumpy every now and again? Because obviously fears that you've had for 30-something years just don't leave like that. But consistency in, putting yourself out there and putting yourself in situations where, like, stress inoculation, back when I was a police officer, a sheriff's deputy here in our county, they taught us about stress inoculation. So the more you put yourself in certain circumstances and certain places, and you face certain things, and you continue to have consistent training in those areas, like, you're trained to do certain things, you understand your atmosphere, your environment, you're observant of all these things, and you know what to do, that muscle memory kicks in, and that stress inoculation that you've been hammered with for however many years you've been doing it kicks in, and it's like, okay, I can handle this. So when it actually happened to me, because I had been consistently handling the animals, I've been trying to really get myself more involved in, like, the actual physical touch to these animals over the past several years of us doing this, and putting myself in those situations and learning more and more about them. It was like, okay, it happened. I'm good. She's good. It's taught me more about spatial awareness of what I need to be looking for when it comes to a snake's enclosure, and learning how to respect their space a little bit better. So no harm, no foul. In fact, we had a learning experience. I won't say it was super dramatic. It wasn't. It wasn't a movie slow-mo scene from a horror movie or anything like that. It was more like my snake was saying, excuse me, ma'am, that is my space, and you are in it. And here's the funny part. Like, my heart jumped, but I didn't, like, just freak out. Like, yeah, I squeaked a little bit and I dropped some poop in the floor, but it is what it is. Like, I cleaned it up too. But I don't know. I just kind of was like, okay, this is a realization. This is a moment that I'm having, and I'm glad it kind of happened, and now I'm ready to move forward. So in the end, I feel like it kind of freed me from the fear per se that I felt when I was a little kid. Now, I'm not going to say I just want to get bit. Nobody wants to get bit, right? But I do think that when you're afraid of something, your brain builds it up like it's this big, scary monster under the bed, you know, that kind of thing. Like, but once it actually happens, it's like you realize it's, you know, that scary monster under the bed was just a shadow. And after that day, which this happened a couple of weeks ago, you know, I've honestly found myself having more confidence handling snakes, because this is the thing. It was funny because the very next day, okay, Will had went down there to check on some things, and I guess he left one of the tubs just slightly open, like it was just literally like that much open because it just didn't get pushed in all the way or something. Anyway, one of our big mamas had pushed open her way out, and she was wrapped around the actual rack, you know, and I was like, when I turned on the lights, she was looking at me and I'm looking at her. It was like, I feel like it was the Shaq meme, like, you're looking at me, I'm looking at you, like, what are we gonna do? Because this is a moment, and I just had my moment last night, and I don't want to have another moment. But as soon as I went towards her, she like reversed, Uno reverso, and went like in between the enclosure stacks. And I'm like, crap, girl, like you can't do this. So I'm like, I grabbed her, like just instinctually, I grab her. And I'm kind of trying to pull her back, but not trying to pull her too hard because I don't want to hurt her. And she starts going, you know, she's not happy with me because she's trying to get away. And I'm like, oh, crap. This is not a good moment. But, you know, I just took what I did the night before and kind of utilized that confidence. Okay, if I for some reason do get tagged, it's okay, it's gonna be all right. Like, so I've got to get her back in her enclosure because she's not safe just roaming around out here. Like, I've got to get her back. So it was just like in that moment I had that confidence that it took to get her to taken care of, to get her back in her enclosure, and I was able to do that. So, I don't know. You know, I think everything happens for a reason. I've always said that. And I realized that the thing that I didn't want to happen, that I thought would actually ruin me, actually probably made me stronger. So, I mean, that made me think even harder into this whole idea of how fear works in general. In reptiles, in life, in business, in everything that you go to do, we get so focused on avoiding pain or failure, you know, that fear, that we forget that facing it actually is the fastest way to grow. If you're scared of getting bit, I get it. I totally understand. But the truth is that fear doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. And when you face it, you take your first bite, whether it's literal or not. Maybe it's a bite in life. You realize that you're capable of way more than you thought. So for all of you out there who have never been bit before and you're petrified that you're going to get tagged or bit or whatever, here's what I want you to know. Bites happen. It's just a part of working with animals. They don't mean it. I mean, it literally doesn't mean that your snake hates you. It doesn't mean that they're mean or necessarily that you did something wrong. Sometimes it just happens. They're animals. They have instincts. They're reactive. And sometimes they're just curious. Your job isn't to eliminate all the risk. Eliminating all the risk means you don't have any, right? It's to understand their behavior, learn their body language, and stay calm. Staying calm is one of the biggest things. It's like, just don't freak out. Breathe. It's gonna be okay. If you respect your animals and you stay consistent and you learn from every interaction, those moments, they become lessons, not really setbacks. Didn't set me back. I mean, that mindset doesn't just apply to reptiles, it applies to life in general. Every time we get bit by fear, by failure, by life's detours, we can either retreat or we can grow. So yeah, that's my story for life after my bite. Life after my bite. And honestly, it's kind of funny that the moment I dreaded the most turned out to be the one that made me fall even more in love with this hobby. If this helped you feel a little more confident on your reptile journey, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, share it with someone who needs to hear this, because I'm telling you, you guys out there constantly asking, us, I say it all the time, like I'm really being funny because I don't really have a whole lot of relationship tips. But, Will and I, we've been together over a decade now, and a lot of times like you guys out there, men, I'm talking to you men, you ask constantly, how did you get your wife into this? How do you get her to agree to this? Because he helped me. Because he basically made a decision, which I love about my husband. He makes decisions. He is a man. But then he turns around, and in the same way of making decisions, he also helps me learn. He teaches me, and he understands that you can't just push something on someone and just expect them to understand it. You have to actually help them through things. And I don't know, he's just really good at that. And if you can help your wife get through some of those things by not it becoming sort of a you versus the wife and trying to talk them into it. Instead, it becomes you two versus the problem, which is maybe she isn't supportive or maybe she's afraid of them. If you attack it from a we versus you and me, then a lot of times you can kind of get through that. So that's all I have for you guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time here at Flawless Exotic Creations. I'm Audra, and I'm out. Bye.